Greetings, dear listeners. Welcome to the podcast of Innovation and Governance. And it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome Professor Eko Prasojo to our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for being here. Professor Prasojo is visiting Ragnar Nurkse department as a visiting professor, and distinguished visiting professor this week. But he himself is a man with such a list of accomplishments that it would take a big part of this podcast to read them all out. I will just say some things, and some things will come out throughout the interview today. So you are the professor, but also the founding dean of the Faculty of Administrative Sciences in the Universitas Indonesia.
Yes.
And you have also been not only studying public administration, but actively as a deputy minister, been involved in the administration of Indonesia as well.
Yes.
So with these, let's say, small part of your accomplishments listed, then let me ask by asking you a personal question about your choice of career. So especially today, when we talk about public administration, we see that the opinions are quite divided, and in many countries, the attitudes towards public administration, towards civil service, are pretty negative. Of course, there are those who support them as well and see the benefit of it, but we don't need to probably look very far to find people who think that these civil servants are a weird, unnecessary annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back to you, you have studied public administration in Indonesia and did very well, graduated cum laude undergraduate, then went to study it in Germany to your doctorate, and also graduated cum laude. Could you tell us, why did you choose public administration as your vocation?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Peter. Yeah, I'm very honored to be here. Yes. Actually, why I choose the public administration as my professions and my field of working. Yeah. Because I thought that if we are going to be a developed country, we have to reform our public administration system as enabling factors, to create efficient, effective, accountable public service to the citizens, as well as to create the investment climate, the better investment climate for the industries in our country. So at that time, when I was starting to study public administrations, I think the image of public administration itself was very bad, because people could not have better public services, slow response, nepotism, collusive, and corruptions in the bureaucracy, in the governments. I believe that if we could slowly reform our public administration system, it will also increase the public trust to the governments. That's why I continue my study after I graduate in the bachelor degree of public administration to aspire postgraduate program in Germany, for my master and also my doctoral degree. So I learned so much, theoretically and also practically, how Germany to be industrial country, with the stability and of course the rigidity of Weberian style public administrations. So even though they are trying also to make modernizations on the public administrations. So when I finished my master and doctoral degree from Germany, I was working with the GIZ. GIZ is the international corporations from the Germany to support for good governance in Indonesia at that time, yeah, as FGG in the Ministry of Administrative Reform at that time. So I was working 11 years with the GIZ, yeah, support for good governance from Germany to Indonesian governments. So at that time, I tried to make some proposal to our governments how to make administrative reform, yeah, to create better system, better public service delivery to citizens and so on, by making policy but also creating the system. Yeah, since then, so I've been working with the government, I think, since 2003. Almost 22 years I've been working with the governments. First time I was a consultant for the principal advisor for the governance reform in Indonesia, supported by the German governments. And I've been appointed as vice minister for administrative reform. This is the elected officials. So we have deputy minister. This is career appointee, but vice minister is a political appointee. So I've been appointed by the president politically to be the vice minister. So the second man in the minister to help the minister to propose some administrative reform program and so on, and making sure that the reform can be effectively implemented in the practice. This is not easy. Indonesia is a very big country. From the complexity and the size is very big. We have 4.2 million civil servants, so 3 times bigger than your population in the Estonian, yeah. But I believe that we could slowly reform our public administrations. When I finish my position as vice minister, I've been appointed as chairman for the independent team for administrative reform. So my job was to advise the governments. So I think 7 years I was the chairman for independent team, and I was appointed as a executive secretary for steering committee for administrative reform in Indonesia under the vice president office. So I was helping the vice president as chairman of steering committee in advising the reform program, but also make sure that the decision made by the vice president and the ministers could be implemented in the practice. So that's the story. But I also promoted profession of public administrations in teaching, in research, and also in the publications. So now I think slowly the image and trust government and also ordinary people to public administration in Indonesia is getting higher. We have a National Association for Public Administration in Indonesia. When I was 2 times be a president of this association, but we are very active in promoting the standard of teaching of public administration in Indonesia. We are also very, very active to advocate the policy in the governments, in the national government, and also in local government. Yeah.
Well, this is a truly impressive track record, and I understand that you have received also several merits for your achievements by the government and elsewhere. Now, you mentioned also already some of the topics. To put it into a context, Indonesia has 281 million inhabitants or
Yeah.
thereabouts. There are they come from over 600 different ethnic groups,
Yes.
and there are 17,000 islands in Indonesia. So and you mentioned the 4.1 million civil servants, which is a staggering number for especially in a small country like this. So I also imagine that the task for making public administration run smoothly is and the whole government to operate well is a very big challenge.
Yes.
But you already mentioned something very interesting that and you have been in the center of these reforms, personally driving these initiatives, and you already mentioned that the attitude of these of the people towards civil servant is changing, and so. Of course, you gave a lecture yesterday about the intricacies of this reform, so it is very hard to capture everything in such a small podcast. But maybe you can say something as a result of these reforms or for other reasons. How do you see the attitudes of people towards the administration changing, and why? What is the engine there?
Yes. I think to show the people that administrative reform work is in the public service delivery. So I think that we improve already some public service through the innovations. Yeah. For example, in health, in educations, in housing, in social insurance, and so on. We improve very much, the public services. Yeah. As I mentioned before in our open lecture yesterday, that we advocate and facilitate the local governments to create public service innovations. Yeah. In order to convince the people that reform has impact to the citizens, not only the document, not only paper. Yes, if we have, for example, 100 targets of indicator, maybe we could achieve, realize 75 or 80% of this target is also okay. I mean, because reform needs commitment, resources, support from the stakeholders, and so on. Sometimes people don't believe that reform could improve the standard of services and so on. But in my experience, reform is very easy if we have a very strong political commitment from the president, from the ministers, from in the local government, from the governor, from the mayor and head of municipalities. So once we get political commitment, strong political commitment, I think it is very easy. Yeah, Indonesia, the culture of bureaucracy in Indonesia is patronage, patron-client relationship. You have a good patron, the client will be changed. So that's the key. That's the key. I think we did some effort, to convince the ministers, to governor, and also mayor in the local governments to show the people that they could improve the quality of public services to the citizens. I think this is the key. What most difficult things is to change the culture. Change the cultures, mental model, values of civil servants. In the past, we recruited, for example, public servant without any transparent, without any accountable system. They now becoming the public servant, but with such bad recruitment system at the time. So 80s and 90s. Now they are public servant. So maybe in 5 or 6 years they are going to retire, pension, and we hope that we could improve the selection process for the new entry public servants. So we already did 10 years since 2013, introducing new selection system for recruitment of new entry public servant through so-called computer-assisted tests. We improve to make transparent and accountable tests for the young people to get involved and to get in the bureaucracy. Now, after 10 years, I think we have best people through the transparent and accountable competitive process from the best university, and I think in 5 years they will be in the higher positions as policymaker. So I think at that time we are starting to improve the quality of public policy making. At the same time, we could also improve the quality of public services, the investment climate, and so on. So reform needs time. I think 10 years, 15 years, the big impact of reform. But we have also to show the citizen so-called quick win, low-hanging fruit, so that the people can trust, okay, the government slowly changing, At that time, the image of the people to the government was very bad, because if we are talking about the recruitment system, means the corruption, the nepotism, collusive system, we have to pay to be public servants. And now the condition is very different compared to the 10 years ago. The system is there. We can convince the people, and they can see the result online also on time. Directly they can see, I passed the exams, so I'm not, and so on. So this is the result of reform. Sometimes in the very short time, but sometimes the big impact can be maybe seen in 10 or 15 years. Yes. Now I think soon we will get the benefits and impact from the reform, with the new civil servants that been selected with the competitive process, transparent process, and so on.
This sounds really good, the aspect of culture that you bring out,
Yes.
and really that reforms, they need time. So those who expect that today we do the reform and next year we see an increase already, this is perhaps too unfounded, or it's like too expectations are too high. If you, and what you talked about yesterday also was that this culture change is accompanied by a generation change as well of the young people who are coming into the civil servants now through this kind of new process that you created. Now, I would like to continue with this topic of culture, because you have had the opportunity to study in Germany and work and study in Indonesia, and you mentioned Weber already as a sort of a founding father of the idea of bureaucracy. So people might have the understanding or sort of expectations that administration works uniformly following these principles in any country whatsoever. However, we do know that there are different, let's say, flavors or cultural influences to public administration. And I know that Indonesia is a country that harbors many different cultures already within itself. So you have Islamic, you have Buddhist, you have other types of religious influences, and so on. So maybe you can talk about a little bit about that. So how do you see the influence of culture to the way in which countries and Indonesia is administered, and what are the connections or conflicts between, let's say, Indonesian and Western public administration?
Yes, I think the development of public administration in Indonesia also very much influenced by colonialization history. Um, as you maybe know that we have been under colonialized governments by Dutch and also by Japanese for a long time. The existing of culture also hand in hand develop in the history of colonizations. So naturally, we are following the Weberian style, but in the colonial interest. Yeah, so that's why the culture is there, the colonization history is there, and what exists now in the bureaucracy is the culture of power. So, like the colonial regime, the power is very important to control the citizen. So we have to, change the culture from the culture of power to the culture of service delivery and so on. Yeah, but indeed, I think the culture that exists in Indonesia has have also much influence on the, for example, corruptive behavior, nepotism, collusive, and so on. Because so one anthropologist, Kuncharaningrat, very well-known anthropologist in Indonesia, wrote about the culture of Indonesian society. He wrote about the big family. So in Indonesia exists the concept of a big family. So you have to maintain your family, your big family. This is, in contradictory with, for example, marriage system, because marriage system, for example, based on the competencies, on the past performance, qualification, and so on. In the big family system, you have to recruit your son, your daughter, your relatives, without any consideration on the competencies and performance and so on like that. So this exists. I think this culture exists in Indonesia, the culture of big family. So when I was introduced new system of recruitment in 2013, my relative in my hometown, in a small town close to the Singapore, criticized because I could not pick them in the bureaucracy, because we have already transparent accountable system. So, but they criticize me. Why you change the system? Why you cannot give the opportunity to your relatives and so on? This is the problem. This is the problem that exists in Indonesia. So that's why we need, I think, to change the education system. Since in the beginning, the elementary school, junior high school, senior high school, and so on. To shift from focusing on transfer of knowledge to change of behavior, change of mental model. The successful of some Western countries is they educate people, not only transfer of knowledge, but they change the mindset. They change the behavior. They change the values of the citizens to be responsible, to be to have integrity, ethic, and so on, public ethic, and so on. So this is, I think, long way for Indonesia to educate people and to change the culture of people. Because what now that we see in the political regime, in the bureaucracy, this is actually the result of bad system in the past in educations. So the government has no concern to educate the honest people, for example, the responsible people, for example, and so on. So that's why, the education system change is very important, but at the same time, we have to change the system in the bureaucracy, selected the best people, reduce the system that give the opportunity to corruptions and so on in the procurement. So, yes, we install the IT to reduce the corruption in the procurement process and so on. Yes.
And you mentioned that the cultural change is difficult.
Yes.
At the same time, if you, as you said, people are seeing the value of bringing this kind of a more, let's say, agnostic or this kind of a uniform, open, accountable system, then maybe the cultural side and the performance of this public services increases. But on the other hand, I would like to continue here with, now you mentioned how the deep-rooted sort of expectations, cultural expectations are a challenge to this kind of a administrative system. But maybe there are also some synergies. And my question is about the sustainability transition, you know, something that we all think about, how to make this kind of industrial system, but also people's behavior more sustainable. And you mentioned in your lecture that you gave to the students here a couple of days ago, this kind of a philosophy of life from the island of Bali.
Yes.
It's Trihita Karana.
Yes.
So this is kind of a deep-rooted understanding of how the life works, which is that you have to balance God, people, and nature. So which for me sounds very reasonable, but it also connects people to this kind of ecosystem and to other people around them. So in your experience and your opinion, does this kind of a cultural values help the sustainability transition? Because in Estonia and in many other countries, public administrators are struggling to explain the benefits. They don't feel that they have the mandate to really do the interfere to people's daily lives. So is this different in Indonesia in that context?
Yes, that's why I think in 5 years, we started 5 years ago with Professor Wolfgang Drexler to focus on development of non-Western public administrations in Indonesia. So you're right that Indonesia has also culture that support the sustainable development. Not only in Bali, actually. In Bali, as you mentioned, we have Trihita Karana, the balance between God, human, and also the environment. This is the principle of sustainable development, actually. But you have also Sasi in Maluku. Sasi is sustainable fish consumption, for example. So this is like local wisdom, local indigenous knowledge that exists for 100 years in the living of the society in some region. We would like to encourage the local governments using the local wisdom to support the development in the regional in concordance with the sustainable development goals, for example. So there are many regions in Indonesia that have local wisdom and local indigenous knowledge. For example, in West Sumatra, we have the Tiga Tungku Sajarangan. It means the decision-making process involving the scholars, involving the traditional leaders, and also involving the cleric, the Muslim leaders, and so on. They pay normally attention on sustainable development goals in policy-making process in the village. In Indonesia, I think that sounds good, and we have to encourage the governments to find the local practices that can supportive for the development. Yeah. So this is the coexistence between the non-Western public administration and also non-Western public administrations. Yeah. There are many. I think, as I mentioned yesterday, we collected more than 26,000 innovations. Mostly are based on local wisdom. We got award from UNPSA, United Nations Public Service Award, for example, in Papua for reducing malaria disease, and Semarang reducing maternal mortality rate and so on. Based on the so-called gotong royong. Gotong royong is the spirit of society to help each other in the poverty alleviations, in the reducing maternal rate of mother and children and so on. Some of this local innovation in public service is actually based on the local wisdom. So that's why I'm very happy to say that we are quite successful in integrating national development program with the local values in Indonesia. Because I think the mayor, the head of municipalities, they are coming from region. They understand the expectation of citizen. They understand the values of citizen in the region, and they can use this knowledge to development program. Yeah. So that's why Indonesia is very decentralized governments. The autonomy of local government is very high. So most of government affairs have been decentralized to local governments. So the quality of government is actually in the local government level.
Right.
Yes, that's why.
Well, I think this is very interesting what you just said, how to combine this kind of local knowledge and local expertise and with this kind of a level playing field, so to say. I think that many countries in the West, in the world, are aiming or trying to do that. Some are succeeding, some are not. But I think that this kind of a symbiosis is a very good thing to learn.
Yeah.
In your reforms, you have focused on the digitalization of public administration as well. Could you say how is digitalization changing now the governance or administration of Indonesia? What can you say about the successes or the challenges?
Yeah, thank you. Even though Indonesia is not comparable with Estonia, in the digital transformations, we started in 2003 actually to transform our government in digital way. The problem is in digital transformations, I think, not only the technology, but the reform itself. So the business process review, restructuring, revision of the regulation and so on, preparing the capability of public servant and citizen in interaction with the machine and so on. This is the problem of Indonesia because the quality of public servant is not yet established with the competence to interact with the digital, and as well as in a smooth in the remote area, in the underdeveloped region. The connections, the mobile network is not yet established. There are many blank spots in the regions. If we are talking about the digital transformation, we are talking about the connections of our region. And we created for a long time the application of technology in order to make a more transparent, better public services, but not yet in the integrated system. So every ministries, agencies, and local government, they establish their own applications, but not yet across the ministries.
Right.
Because some public services are integrated in some ministries, even in from central, provincial, and also local governments. So that's why I think last year we launched so-called Ina Digital. So Indonesia in Indonesia Digital, Ina Digital is one policy to get more connectivity among the ministries and agencies. We already integrated to the One Data Indonesia. Yeah, One Data Indonesia is very important because we use the same data for development program. Yeah, now I think 16% of data Indonesia have been integrated. Yeah, in One Data. Now we are also creating the generic applications for public services. Nine services are now integrated in the Ina Digital: education, tax, health, police, immigrations, and some others. Is getting digitalized. Yeah, in Ina Digital. Yeah. We are very advanced, I think, in national single window Indonesia in export-import activities. So, in my imaginations, the national single window Indonesia could be also host for digital transformation in Indonesia, because they have already experience. They have resources from because this is under the Ministry of Finance. They have human resource with high-tech technology competencies. They have also experience on making business process integrated and so on. Yeah, if we, I think, can integrate the data, integrate the resources, and also integrate the application, I think slowly we are going digital. Yeah, even though maybe in the big city, yeah, in the first state in the big city, because if you see in the small island, there is no mobile network connections and so on. Yeah.
But how big is the expectation, or what is the expectation of citizens? That do they demand digital interfaces,
yes.
government?
Yes, very high, very high, and I mean, if we see the private sector development, for example, Gojek is like Bolt in Estonia. Yeah, this is high-tech services. Yeah, by private sector. You know, if we see how the people interact with the private services online, digitalized, Indonesia is now ready in the competencies of the people, because they are very experienced in interaction with the private services like Gojek, food services, transport, and others, and even public services are now provided also by Gojek. So we're going to I mean seamless services between the public and the private. So Gojek could be also like driver for digital transformation in Indonesia.
Right.
They are preparing the digital literacy of citizens in interaction with the digital services.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we improve the system of digital system in the governments, connected to the Gojek, for example, we have also Grab, Gojek, but the biggest one is Gojek. I think slowly we can make the people on board for digital services.
Right.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Professor Eko Prasojo, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we could go on, but in the sake of our listeners, maybe one last question to you. Now, you have studied public administration. You have led the reforms of public administration. You have seen. We've discussed cultural differences all over the world, and obviously there are local flavors to public administration reforms, but it seems to me that there are people who think, at least, that public sector should be reformed in many countries. And some do it very poorly. They do it absolutely in a most stupid way, and I won't name names here, but we all know who I'm talking about. And some try to do it in another way. And of course, we at Ragnar Nurkse also try to provide our know-how to the civil servants. But from your experience, long years of experience, and I know this is very simplified version, but if you would give one advice to reformers of public administration in the world, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's very good question, critical question. You know, Ireland, since 2006, we established in ASEAN countries so-called ASEAN Public Management Forum. I was involved in this ASEAN Public Management Forum together with Nakamura, Professor Akira Nakamura, Professor Pansukim, Anthony Cheng, and some other scholars.
Who have been here as well in
yes,
Estonia.
And some other scholars from ASEAN countries. What we did is we exchanged the knowledge, practices of reform. Practices of administrative reform, public management reform in ASEAN countries. So what I did in my country is actually this is a result of knowledge exchange. Knowledge exchange between the scholars and practitioners in ASEAN countries. So I learned from Korea, I learned from Japan, I learned from Singapore, I learned also from Australia and some other countries. But we adapt to Indonesia because we cannot adopt. We adapt, not adopt. Customize to Indonesian system. So exchange knowledge and experience is very important. Knowledge sharing forum among the ministries, among the countries in ASEAN, in Southeast Asian countries, very important. Because you know that the principle of reform is never-ending process, unfinished program. Because the environmental strategic changing is there, the expectation of the citizen is higher and higher. Yeah, we cannot stop the reform. Even US, European countries, they are continuing the reform to fulfill the expectation of citizens. When we stop the reform, we cannot achieve the expectation of the citizen. Yeah, sometimes we are very fast in reform, but we stuck in one stage. We review again, evaluate again our strategy, and make new booster to reform again, and so on. So I think, for example, Korea, Estonian is now the fast reform with technology. Yeah, but someday maybe you will be stuck with the technology. And now we are in the middle to catch up the digital transformation in our country. Someday maybe we are also stuck, and we have to look for another strategy to ensure that the expectation of citizen can be filled. Yeah, so that's why never satisfied with the achievement of reform, because what we achieve now maybe tomorrow become the challenges for the next reform. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Very good answer. Thank you very much for this interview. It's been a pleasure talking to.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Peters. I learned so much from other countries and also from Estonian, from scholars from Taltech and so on. Yeah. I enjoy the time and the opportunity in making reform work. Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
And thank you for our listeners. We will see you and hear you in our next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.